So welcome, everybody. This is for uh, new ALS directors, alternative language services, as well as, you know, I won't say the old crew, but I'll just say the seasoned people who have been with us for quite a while, which is really exciting. Um, so hi, Bev, and I see Taylor. So hi, Taylor, and of course, Dina, Randy, Shannon, all you wonderful people. So this this is always, and Robin, hi Robin. This always is exciting for me. Uh, Even though it's not in person, it ends up being, really effective in relationship to saving mileage, saving, I'm a big like saving money and making sure kids have the funds that they need and teachers have the support that they need. So, this is a wonderful experience. Um, so I'm actually going to give you a brief overview of what we're going to do. And then we have Clint here who will actually talk about a new aspect of monitoring. Most people know, and I think Veronica and Thais in particular, because you were with me when we did NEBO and we did observations. So if you want to jump in about that, that would be great. The program monitoring is going to be the same, and the new Title III website under monitoring shows you the timeline. This will probably be the last day at 5 o'clock for charters to join a consortium so that they can have a fiscal agent as one of the members. One of the things that came up recently is this idea of using supplemental funding for translation services. Okay, so I ended up talking to the new Department of Language Acquisition, OELA. They've kind of taken over Title III. And so I have a new document that I'll actually put on the website in relationship to using Title III, which is supplemental funding for translation services. Because what we're trying to really do is, especially because now it's state law, that state funding should be used for translation and interpretation services because, it's a civil rights issue. So if it's a civil rights issue, then it means that states are responsible for ensuring that. And now that it's a state law and you have a language access policy, it's an even stronger motivation to really think differently about how resources are allocated. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Clint. And Clint is going to talk about the additional fiscal monitoring process, which I think will be beneficial because my question, and I know you get tired of me saying the same thing like over and over again, is how are you evaluating program effectiveness so the way in which you allocate resources actually impacts student learning, right? I mean, that's really the that's really the point. I mean, doing the same thing over and over again without evaluating program effectiveness and not seeing the relationship between how resources are spent and the impact on students learning English and their access to advanced coursework, you know, doesn't really move us forward. And I'll just start with something that's really positive, and then I'll turn it over to Clint, and he'll talk about the fiscal relationship, the fiscal monitoring of Title III, which I'm not going to really be involved in, but the report and the findings, I'll work with you afterward when we do program. And we'll talk about the new cycle, the 5-year cycle for program visiting. I've pretty much contacted everybody so far about the new schedule for this year, which I'm using in a different way. Um, I'm a slow learner, so it takes me a while to figure out that one of the best things to do is, and we did this with Nebo, is to have Veronica and Thais and the principal and other people on the team actually come and use the observation tool so that they can better understand what scaffolded instruction looks like, so that their default isn't, pull the students out so that they're not involved in core content instruction, right? And so that ends up just being a challenge. It's been a challenge, since 1993, when in California, the diverse population, actually was related to the way in which teachers felt more comfortable and competent in working with diverse students of multiple languages. So, Clint, are you ready to take over?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I hope we can see you.
Okay, I cannot share my camera. It says that it cannot find it. I was on a Teams meeting earlier today and it worked fine, but Zoom will not find the camera. But I should still be able to share documents.
Okay, so do you want to share your document?
Okay. See, I'll go ahead and share. I won't talk about it for a minute, but
And Clint is a real person. He's actually not a ghost. Okay, we can see it.
okay. So good morning. My name is Clint Hoke, and I'm here for Marilee Wendell, who is the fiscal monitor for Title III, and she also does Title I. I'm the fiscal monitor for many other support programs like McKinney-Vento, Migrant Education, Indian Education, 21st Century, Parent Educator, and School Turnaround. And I'm the second for Title I and Title III to support Marilee. So today, Christelle has asked that I go over a brief explanation of the fiscal monitoring portion that will happen for Title III. So the fiscal monitoring will be handled in Utah grants. Christelle will set up a meeting for the monitoring. And once the meeting has been scheduled, we'll create what's called a Utah grant site visit, which most of your LEAs, and I've checked all the LEAs who will be monitored this year, your business administrator has done a site visit in Utah grants before for other fiscal monitoring. And so the site visit will act as a repository for all documentation and reports that's needed for the visit. So once we create a site visit, it will have an explanation of what's needed for the visit and a place for you guys to upload the documents that we request. And so we'll request documentation like a general ledger for the fiscal year that we're being monitored, time and effort documentation, as well as some district policies like time and effort, cash management, and procurement. So once a site visit is created, you and the business administrator will get an email that there is a site visit in Utah grants with directions of how to log on and go to the site visit in Utah grants. Now, this is my view for the site visit. It has a few different portions. Most of them you'll work with will be the overview and attachments. The overview just gives basic information about the site visit, a description of what we'll be doing, as well as people that will be required to be in attendance. And for the fiscal monitoring portion, that will be the Title III director and the business administrator. And you guys can have anybody else that you would like in the visit also. Instructions for the subrecipient. So here we'll put anything that you guys need to do to get ready for the visit. And then on the attachments page will be where all documentation for the visit will be kept, and this will be available for your in the future after the visit, so it won't go away. So we will upload from the attachments from Grantor any instructions for you guys and what we need for documentation. We'll have a documentation request on there. And so you'll just open the document, see the things that we're asking you to upload, and then you'll upload those in the section here for attachments for Grantor. And there will be a button on your screen that says new. You just click that and you select the document to upload, like the policy. And so for the documentation, one thing that we ask that you guys fill out, and we will upload it to Utah Grants. You guys can then download it. It will be a general checklist. And so this just talks about many of the fiscal aspects, about different policies. And most of your business administrators have filled these out for other programs. They're basic questions. And so this will be needed to be downloaded, filled out, and then re-uploaded back to Utah Grant. And so this will be, this usually doesn't take people more than a half hour to fill out. We've asked them. And your business administrator has filled out the same form for other federal programs like Title I and Special Ed. So on the day of the site visit, we do them over Zoom, and so it will be virtual. They'll probably take around a half hour, just depending on if there's any issues, it might be a little bit more or it might be a little bit less. And so we usually talk mostly with the business administrator during the site visit. We go over this form that's filled out, and then any issues or problems that we have found as we've gone over the policies of the general ledger. And let's see. So the next portion of that I'm going to talk about is a risk assessments for all federal programs. We're adding risk assessments that need to be filled out each year. And these have been filled out in the past for federal programs like Special Ed and for Title I. And so we're starting to add them to the 21st century, to Title III, and then be in all the other federal programs that we are monitoring. And so this is just a it will be a form that's in Utah Grants that's filled out that will be sent. And so it's up to you if you guys do it or have the business administrator fill out. So the questions are the questions that you're seeing here. It's a short 15, about 12 to 15 questions. I didn't count. And the answers are here on the form already. And so you will just click a button for whichever one is appropriate for your LEA. There is one question on here that because we use the same forms with multiple programs, that won't be applicable to this program, which deals with maintenance of effort. We ask you click the bottom one. It's just easier for us. If you don't, we can change that as we're reviewing the risk assessment in Utah Grants. And so the risk assessment is just a tool to let us know if any programs need special attention. There's things like it talks about turnover between the program director or the LEA, or programs that get more money than others, or who have had some problems in the past. And so if any LEA is deemed high risk, then that may necessitate a physical monitoring visit that will happen for that fiscal year, regardless of where you are on the 5-year schedule. And unless there's any questions, that's all I have.
Yeah, so Clint, let me just respond to a couple things
Sure.
that I've seen. And also the 5-year cycle, when I actually started developing it, I made sure that Title I visit, program, and fiscal was not in the same year. Right. So you won't be, so the Title III program visit with the fiscal monitoring isn't the same as the Title I. Okay. The 5-year cycle, whether I'm here or not, that's really not the point, is based on the fact that the first year has to be districts, pretty much that have a history of using Title III funds. So many of the charters that are just recent aren't on the first year. So the actual cycle and the schedule will be posted on the Monitoring Title III website. And if you're not familiar with the Title III website, you really have to go and look at all the resources that are there as well as allowable expenditures and the timeline for funding, especially the issue around charter schools that, you know, don't have the 10,000, their allocation does not meet the 10,000 mark, which is pretty typical of most charters because they don't have that many students who are learning English. And so they join a consortium, and there are also rural districts as well. So we have, a rural Duchesne is one of them. And they're with Carbon and several other rural districts. And they've been doing consortiums and a fiscal agent within a consortium, which the law has not changed. USB cannot be the fiscal agent for any consortium. So Clint, for me, one of the biggest issues is what are the elements of a risk assessment? And then you can stop sharing your screen and then maybe you could just talk about it. And
The risk assessment, the questions are on here. It's just anything that would make your program more risky or more likely to not follow program requirements. So things like, has there been turnover in the director, turnover in the business administrator? Because a big part is reimbursing the items. Have you submitted any reports late? Are there any policies that you guys do not have? And so the questions are here on the screen right now. And so it's just any questions that might make your program more risky.
yeah, so I'll just say, and then we'll open to more questions. And if you don't put it in the chat, it'd be better if you just unmute yourself and ask the question instead of me having to go back and forth and monitor. And Bev, thanks for putting the first year in. Guadalupe is not in the first year. And one of the reasons is, and we might talk about this, Clint, as well, is they didn't, this year and last year, they didn't reach the 10,000 mark, so they had to join a consortium. So the way in which fiscal monitoring is done for consortiums is something that Clint and Marilee will work out. So programmatic issues, and we can talk about that. Veronica, or Thais can talk about the way in which the programmatic issues are based on just one simple question. And that simple question is, how do students learning English have access to grade level content? That's pretty simple. Now, if your programs aren't designed to ensure that that happens, then you're missing an opportunity for creating, kind of an economic future for students learning English. So, the endless pullouts typically don't work unless you've designed it so the ELD instruction is powerful in relationship to how it's aligned to sheltered instruction in the content areas. Right. I think we all understand this, but it's a huge challenge. So then how do you support your teachers in doing this? That's the question. So the observation tool is a way that we can all learn together what quality, well-scaffolded instruction looks like for comprehensible input of grade level content. Okay, so this year, I've already contacted Granite, Weber, Jordan, Canyons, Davis, Alpine, Box Elder. And together, we just set up, the dates for the visits. And the reason is that you all know which administrative teams are open to feedback and open to technical assistance, right? It's kind of arbitrary if I make these decisions and I don't really work with the people who are the closest to, the schools. I mean, you see my point. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So working with you to decide, not which classrooms, but which schools we're going to visit and who's going to come with me. Previously, I used other people from USBE, but I've changed that because I think it's much better to support the districts in better understanding and building their capacity to use an observation tool related to well-scaffolded instruction based on cognitive rigor. Right. So I don't know, Veronica, do you want to say anything about your experience when you came, or Thais, before we go on?
I mean, if I can take a minute to just add that it was actually a great experience. the way Christelle managed this. It's really collaborative, and the admin do take part in this, and it's really more of a collaborative uh, visit other than just coming in, going in, observing, and that's it, you walk in and out, and debriefing afterwards, and just how we can help our teachers and how we can best support them to help our kiddos be successful and have that equal access. It was great experience to be able to do that with Christelle.
Thanks, Veronica. Thais, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think I think one of the things that was lovely is kind of to piggyback on what Veronica said, is that it was great to be able to have that interaction with Christelle and how she's interacting with districts and to get that sense. It was great to work with principals. It was great to go with Veronica and get to have all of that collaboration and say, what are we doing in the state? What's happening? And the tool itself, we love the tool. It really does focus on sheltered instruction. It focuses on meaningful integration of language within content and engagement and those Hattie best practices. Lots of our schools just really like using that in conjunction. And we do have district, things that come down, uses protocol and this and that, but we have principals that tie it into those because they just feel like it's very applicable, it's very beneficial, it's very actionable, and in a way that's really, really meaningful. So yeah, it was a great experience to get to participate. And I love the way Christelle just really wants us all to be a community and not there's the state and there's you, and we hope that you're doing what we want. It wasn't like that. It was just really beautiful to see how Christelle wants to build relationships with everyone and how powerful that could be. So I really appreciated that opportunity.
Thanks, Thais. I don't know, Randy's here, so I don't know, Randy might want to say something when we observed, because I think maybe Mike and Dinah came with me. I think it was Mike. If you want to say anything. And the reason I'm, getting people from schools and districts to talk about this experience is, if we actually are a learning community together and we're learning with and from each other, then the processes we use should facilitate that ability to learn with each other. Right? There's no such thing as the silver bullet. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous in the first place. All of you are too young, but in the 1950s, there was this show. It was the Lone Ranger. Now, I'm not the Lone Ranger, but in this TV show, it was always about the silver bullet. Okay, so I'm just telling you that there's no such thing, and I'm not the Lone Ranger. It's how we're learning together, which is really important. Jenny,
Christelle,
yeah, Dave, where are you?
you mean there is no computer program that I can plug into my ELL kids? It's gonna magically teach them English? Gee, I was searching for that my whole life.
Yeah, I know you were, Dave. And I know people have spent lots of money doing that. And when you interview kids, I remember this one kid. He's, because I do interviews with students and ask them the 3 questions. What are you learning today? Why are you learning it? How will you know that you've learned it? And this one kid said to me, okay, the first thing is get rid of that computer program. That's like ridiculous. That was like a high school student. And a 5th grade student in Ogden said, okay, that is like the worst computer program I've ever seen in my life. So all you have to do is actually ask the students the impact that computer programs, have on their learning. So Dave, thank you for your humor.
Sorry, I had to say it, and those of you who know me understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, Dave is a really good friend. So I don't know, Randy, do you want to say anything about when we observed together? Or Mike or Dinah? We had such a great time. We actually had such a great time in Washington County that I stayed, I don't know, well, it was because it was a snowstorm, which was really weird. I think it was like in May or something, but I stayed a couple of extra days and hung out with a high school team and saw some like really great instruction. And that's how we started working with the Southern Paiute tribe. And now they're, actually working on revitalizing their language. So, all of these things are good. Sometimes you can't plan for what happens, but you can be open to the experience of learning with each other. And Ellie, if you want to jump in and talk about, the observations and the report, or Robin or anybody, because the report really focuses on commendations for teachers. That's really, isn't that, I don't know, that ends up being the point. I saw one of the best ELD classes in my entire life in Wasatch in a high school. It was like brilliant. And not to mention the math instruction that when I think about it, I start salivating. I can't remember which school it was, Robin, but I think it was a 6th grade teacher, and she was like just incredible. Best math instruction I've seen besides the math instruction in a 5th grade class in Park City and in an elementary school in San Juan, where every single math teacher has on the board the success criteria. So the point I'm making is there's such quality instruction everywhere in Utah that, having a report that actually identifies and commends teachers for the way in which they're scaffolding content instruction is how we all benefit. Really, that's the point. And the recommendations are just based on patterns we see, so that the districts can align their resources related to their own strategic plan. It's not about a gotcha or findings or anything like that. So the program aspect of it is what, we design together. I've already talked to Dave about, what we want to do, talk to Connie about what we want to do. So this whole thing is about a collaborative learning experience for collective efficacy. So any other comments before I make a few announcements? We're actually going to, at 10, Megan Lopez will join us, and then she'll talk about WIDA. What I'm trying to do is, everybody on the planet asks me questions that have nothing to do with the work that I do. All the questions about assessment have to go to Megan. She's the one who's in charge of WIDA and assessment. All the forms that I've translated are on Title III, and eventually will be on the assessment department as well. So that everything is congruent instead of haphazard, because it ends up wasting everybody's kind of time. Any comments from anybody about the teaching that we've seen together or the work that we've done together? I saw a great 5th grade teacher in Park City who was using Joe Bowler's way of helping kids analyze mathematics, and this fabulous biology class in Murray. If we could clone that, biology teacher, it would be amazing. And some really great instruction in Cedar City. So any comments before we go on?
Hi, this is Mike down in St. George.
Hi,
You,
Mike.
hi, you sparked my memory on when you were down doing a visit. That same thing. You saw some successful math and science, and our setup's a little bit different. You got to learn about an intermediate school, which was the 6th and 7th grade center. And so I just concur that what you were talking about was a positive experience. And yes, you did get to stay another day too and work with the high school. So I think you did a great job of explaining what you did, and I disagree. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so, I have the huge advantage of visiting like all these classrooms, seeing wonderful instruction, making commendations for teachers, districts that can validate the work that teachers are doing. I work with Carl in DLI, and, this year we actually had districts like Alpine had 225 biliteracy seals, Canyons 200, Jordan 156, Nebo 173, Davis 360. So, whenever I do the official report to the Education Interim Committee, I always brag about the way in which districts are ensuring that the biliteracy seal is a way that creates more economic opportunity, across diverse languages. And so this is really important. And a student that I've worked with at Utah International Charter, and now he's accepted into the Honors College. He's taking economics and humanities as well as, majoring in computer science and astrophysics. And, one of the things he said is that people don't understand that the biliteracy seal is so important because it ends up opening up your schedule so you don't have to take the language requirement. So I don't know if you all know that, but I think that's the piece that's really important. The more the kids have access, even in the 8th grade, to the biliteracy seal, the biggest advantage then when they, matriculate to university is that their language skills are honored by universities. And so congratulations to all of you on this really important and impressive work, that you're doing. Any other comments before I talk about the interpreter training? Or any questions? Okay, so as you know, the language access policy in 2022 was passed, as well as so HB 302, which now is state law, and then HB 230 that focuses on registration issues related to students who don't have birth certificates. Now, registration is coming up, or you're in the middle of it, or whatever. But we should not, we should go back and look at, HB 230 and not put up barriers to having students who've come from Afghanistan or the Ukraine or the Congo or whatever, and we're not allowing them to register. Okay. That's now, it's not only, against federal law, but it's now against state law. There are all these varieties of ways in which you can register students and make sure, they have access to free and reduced lunch. And all the resources are already on the USBE, fee waiver, department. So the reason I'm saying this is the stress of registering students who aren't fluent in English and their parents ends up being this huge barrier, and it doesn't have to be. And it's not just federal law, but now it's state law. So in HB 302, the whole thing about qualified interpreters, what we decided to do was create, based on the national standards, an application for interpreter training. It's a 10-week course that I've designed based on the national standards, very competency-based. And we had 117 applicants and 70 ended up enrolling from all over the state into the course. I also had live Zoom sessions where interpreters in districts had been interpreting in IEP meetings and student services meetings, and the things and with nurses, and they were telling me the things that end up happening where districts are not clear about the obligations of state law in HB 302. And all of that is on our website. So you go to Title III and go to legislation, you'll see, the model policy, and many of you have already done this, for which I'm very grateful. And you've done just amazing work in welcoming, students and their families. I mean, the big thing in Utah, which is touted as, what Utah values, is parent and family engagement. And so then what does that look like for students whose families don't speak English? Right. So that's a really important piece. And especially with more newcomers and refugees coming in, I know that there's been a significant increase. So the question is, how do we access interpreters and what languages are provided? So let me tell you about how we're actually building that capacity. And I'm going to use, I don't know if she's here, but I'm going to use Provo as an example, Nebo as well. So because I've actually established the level 1 USBE certification. Veronica just finished hers, and she can probably talk about it as well. And Provo. So we actually have someone in Provo who will now facilitate the course that I designed so that Provo can certify their own interpreters. So Provo now has, they've already sent out their applications. They already have, I think, something like in their 40 schools, they have 2 in each school. So they have 80 applicants. And the person who's certified by USBE will now take over the Canvas course that I designed so that Provo is able to train their own interpreters. Nebo will be doing the same thing. I think Jordan also will be doing the same thing. So when you have interpreters that you've already worked with and they have finished the certification successfully from USBE and are certified, then you can work with them in the course that I designed so that you can actually certify your own interpreters. Most of the 117 interpreters are Spanish speakers. But we also have, interpreters who speak Pashto, Urdu, other languages, Middle Eastern languages, a few African languages. I'm working with a particular high school, and this won't happen until next year. So Ellie, I'm looking at you because we talked about this. There are high school students who are refugee students who are fluent in 5 languages. So I worked about 5 years ago with, I'm not going to say which high school or which teacher. She took the course and she actually designed the course where she had 15 to 20 students who were seniors who actually ended up being trained as interpreters by her. And they actually ended up going to elementary schools, professionally dressed and well-trained to do interpretation at parent conferences. So all of these are possibilities that focuses on how LEAs can build their own capacity for translation services based on the languages that they need. So, this is, I'm hoping, and I can send you the recognition and the actual program, the plan for upscaling interpreter certification throughout the state that was presented at the board last month. Okay, so what other questions do you have about interpreters and the language access policy? So Robin says, can you go over the policy? Okay, well, the policy is based on HB 302. So I'm not sure I really want to go over it because most people already have their language access policy. So Shasta is saying we have LIA students interpret PTCs. Is this against FERPA? Okay, well, I think you actually want to think about the future of the LIA students so that they become incredibly skillful and professional. So it'd be a lot better if the people who are doing LIA would contact me so that they can have access to the course. So, because if you want, the course is pretty, the law is focusing on the qualities of interpreters. So the other thing that we're doing is the assistant superintendent provided $350,000 for an advanced course for 40 hours. So a lot of the people who are finishing the level 1 certification at USBE are moving toward the advanced course because we ended up getting a provider, and I'll take the course as well. And then they'll be able to do all the training statewide from the advanced the advanced course that they complete successfully, which is 40 hours, and it's nationally known. So the question is, it says our LIA instructor took your course last year. He loved it. Are you saying the students can as well? Well, all you have to do is connect me with the LIA instructor, right? As soon as you do that, then, you know, and that person is certified, they can do what Provo's doing, which they can actually offer that course to the LIA kids. See, this is how you actually, okay, so you know that, so the whole point of this, right, is I'm working myself out of a job. I mean, that's kind of the point. The point is, how do we systematically change the structures that are in place to build the local capacity for, you know, a career pathway for all the students that we have who are multilingual learners. I mean, I don't know why, I mean, why aren't we doing that? So this is one way to actually do it. Robin says, we don't allow students to translate for high stakes meetings unless parent is specifically requested. And FERPA is an issue, yes. So that's the other thing. Like for an example, when you're doing IEPs, okay, so you're not gonna, you know, you're not, I mean, this, like, these are like huge legal issues in relationship to, you know, laws related to special needs and confidentiality. So you have to be like really careful in relationship to, and Robin from Murray says, you know, that's in there, that's actually in the policy. And, you know, Allie, so this is the other thing. So if you made a list of all the ways your students could be the welcomers and the supporters and at registering families and working with them, you see what I'm saying? I mean, you actually build the capacity of creating a belonging, welcoming environment because the students are the ones who actually knows how that feels, right? We don't know, I mean, we don't know how that feels typically. You know, we might, some of us might, you know, but generally we don't understand the anxiety and the stress when families come to register their students. Have you ever seen those lines? I mean, it's, I don't know, when I was the, you know, assistant principal, like this goes back to also, you know, what does student mentoring look like? What does, can we actually provide credit for creating a whole, you know, a whole group of, you know, amazing peer mentors and peer tutors and peer advocates. You know, the high school students are the best people to understand what the experience is like in high schools in Utah. I mean, we aren't, I don't think. I mean, most of us went to high schools, you know, in very different times. We don't understand the stresses. We don't understand that. You know, even a first-year freshman at the University of Utah, I mean, they're having heart failure because the dorm isn't finished and the kids that, you know, we sent there from our high schools don't have places to stay. You know, so the question is, how do you build the capacity of young people to be the leaders? So the other comment is we registered over 200 students ahead of school registrations solely for families who need language assistance. This is from Murray too. We had, I think it is, we had bus, free lunch, immunizations, smart smiles, explanation of fees, in addition to registration. Okay, so this is what it looks like to have a welcoming environment where families actually feel like they belong instead of like, you know, aliens from another planet. I mean, this is, I mean, you realize this is like a great opportunity. I mean, this is a great opportunity for us to actually develop being wonderful human beings. So even from a selfish viewpoint, you could actually say, you know, I'm working on being a better human being. And so I'm looking at the systems and how we change that in relationship to creating Utah as the best place to come for education in a public school.
Christelle, can I just add something, Christelle?
Yeah, Dave.
I mean, I love what they're doing. That's Robin, right? Or whoever put
Yeah.
that. I love what
It's me.
she's doing there. And it's this concept of building capacity, which I love and hear what you're saying, right? And we're one of the biggest districts that have MLs. We're a majority minority district, okay? And yet we rarely talk about multilingual learners. In our district level meetings, it rarely comes up. And if I don't bring it up or someone else doesn't bring it up, then we don't talk about it. And so when you're talking about building this capacity piece, that's what we're trying to work on in Granite, instead of this concept of, well, I can't help those kids, so I'm going to send them over to that department. Right? That's what we've had here in Granite for far too long. It's this concept of, no, we have to send them somewhere, instead of, this is our school, this is our community, we're going to use our people, we're going to build our capacity here. I love this idea, Christelle. I think it's phenomenal. I mean, obviously what Robin said, you got to separate the official meetings from the non-official meetings, but that doesn't mean that we can't train people in our community to be these translators, because they do, especially in a district like Granite. I mean, we've got to get up to speed. I know that's my job, but I'm saying as a district, we got to get up to speed. But that's one of the reasons why, you've seen this idea of, no, it's someone else's problem. It's not ours. We need to send them somewhere, or we need to get someone else to do it, right? So I love seeing this stuff like in Murray and other places that people are building that capacity.
So Dave, just to piggyback that too, because I know that, like, I know what we do, but I don't often say it to other people. I did ask that every single district administrator, including my superintendent, and every single principal, whether they were an intern or assistant principal, they were all there. And my school lunch nutrition person was there to explain menus and to talk to families about dietary needs. We had our bus driver supervisor there to help the families understand their routes. We had the nurses there to talk about how to read their immunization records, as well as we had the health department there to provide shots on site. We had the dental people there. I had financial secretaries there to help explain the fees to our high school students, and also the fee waiver process, which a lot of our parents are afraid of. And also this free and reduced school lunch forms. They had people sitting at tables. And this was one that we deployed our Latinos in Action kids, and they were all over the place and partnered. Our registration, I don't know if any of your districts have a simple process, but just our registration process is so cumbersome, and there's so many things we're asking parents to read and sign. And again, if you think about them when they're mixed in with a line of people during a high school registration, it's one of those that, whether it's overt or covert, they get made to feel like they're a problem by taking up too much time and space. And so again, we registered them. We did all of this ahead of any of our schools opening up registration to the other families. So parents can certainly go back, students can go back. Our students actually do get to meet with the counselors, but they've done all the paperwork stuff that perhaps prevented them from getting their schedules completed. And we really hope too that, in addition to all of that, I have my entire ESL team, all of my DWS refugee liaisons. I have everybody there so we can start making connections, so that families are seeing that there's a lot of people who can advocate. We moved some school kids around. We changed some boundaries, and there was a lot of upset with that because people loved the school they were getting moved from. And so to be able to have the receiving principals to stand and talk to families, and they could feel better about her and see that they potentially will love her as much as the principal that they're losing. It goes back to Dave, that bigger problem of connecting like with the people, but I'll tell you what, it is kind of an eye-opening experience when you say to every district administrator and every principal, it's all hands on deck on creating this welcoming environment. I just love that, you know, we're now registering over 200 kids, and those are the people who actually decided to turn the form into us. And Chris feels like there was another probably 30 kids who didn't turn in the form to us on their way out.
Thanks, Robin. Bev, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So one of the other things too that we did, Dave, hearing your point, and Robin, we do some similar things with how we register families. So, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to lower my hand real quick at the same time. So one of the things that we also did, what we were finding is that, to your point, it's, oh, well, we'll send them to that department. So we, over the last 3 weeks, have done 3 different trainings with front office staff that we have asked schools to identify that are not bilingual necessarily. Some are, some aren't. But we really went through, when a family walks into that office, what can you do when you don't have an interpreter there? And so we went through all the resources. We made sure they had cards with Linguistica's number. We made sure all that kind of stuff. And that was pretty well received, because that's where we were seeing a big gap. I don't know if anyone else does, but they weren't even getting past the front door in the first 10 minutes without feeling like they were a problem. And we were finding that we were having families that were misunderstanding. People were trying to use their phone and all that kind of stuff. And they weren't getting, we need to get an interpreter. Can you come back tomorrow? They were getting, we can't register you. And then they didn't come back. So that was pretty helpful for us this year. So anyway.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Bev. Registration. I mean, if you just imagine, you know, us with children going to register, I don't know, in Czechoslovakia or Serbia or someplace, you know, we would be so incredibly stressed out, you know, talk about the vagus nerve, you know, and, you know, the secretion of cortisol, we just like be beside ourselves. And so that's, I mean, that's another way to develop your own empathy. The other thing is, I'm working with a USBE counseling department. Talk about turnover. We won't say anything about that. But I'm actually designing, and I hope you all will help me, a webinar that we would probably do in January in relationship to counselors who end up, I don't know, either look, so excuse me, because I've had this experience, not me personally, but with students that I advocate for. They either look at a student and assume they're an English learner because they have dark skin, or they have a different name, or like whatever. Okay, so, you know, pretty much that has to stop. I mean, this is like really not really a good thing. So the question ends up being, you know, I have some people, one person who's an interpreter, and she works with counselors, and she's doing a great job in Weber. And so, and I also have Rahul Adini, who just graduated and is in the Honors College at the University of Utah, with all these ways in which counselors can support students learning English. So we actually have a student who had an experience, negative and positive, and then, you know, someone who works with counselors, because, you know, asking students or saying things like, well, you have a WIDA score, and so you can't have this course. Okay, so you can't really say that. I mean, people say it, but, you know, I mean, this issue about the way in which you determine, for some strange reason, about what students can do based on your assumptions related to immigration status. Okay, so no, we're not going to do that. So we have to think differently about how we work with counselors, you know, all of us, instead of these separate silos. And teaching and learning. Some of you have the best competency-based ESL endorsements on the entire planet. I mean, the UK would be salivating to actually see the work that you're doing to prepare teachers, right? But then you have a whole nother group of people, usually in curriculum for what I don't really know, that want to go back to spending tons of money on university courses instead of competency-based because they think it's too much trouble. Okay, so we have a lot of work to do. That's, really good work. So Veronica, I'm going to actually ask you something about the interpreter course, because if you all want access to the interpreter course that I designed, which is a 10-week course on the national standards and work on HB 302. Do you know the interpreters actually understand HB 302 more than most people in the entire state, probably more people in the state legislature. And I could also give you access to our Zoom sessions, because then you would see the issues that come up for interpreters when they're asked to do interpretations in high stress environments. So you have to email me to say that you want access to the course, but the only way you can offer it is if a level 1 certified person offers it. You can't do it. You have to actually be certified, and then your district has to agree that, the way in which you're working, like Provo and Nebo, and I think Jordan as well, you can actually develop your own district certification. Then you'll have, a range of interpreters to work. So Veronica, before we move to Megan and Wida, do you want to say something about your experience, the Zoom sessions and the HB 302 and the coursework or anything like that?
Absolutely. Christelle, I got certified to interpret in the state of California, and so I thought it would be pretty similar to that. And I have to say that this is the first time that I learned of all the national standards. And so that was really eye-opening for me. And it really, it's a great opportunity. Once again, I love how Christelle works, because she's just trying to create a community of learners, and she really gives that opportunity for everybody to express and explain kind of their experiences and what it's like, because we learn off of that. Oftentimes in ML Learner myself, we learn. I might have the social language to be able to interpret, but maybe not so much the academic, and maybe not so much. And so I came out of there having a couple of other contacts that now I can reach out to if I have any questions. And so it really does, Krista, I feel like the way you set it up, it does create that community of learners and just that network of people, so that if you do run into any issues, I don't always have to run to you, Christelle. I can always go to somebody else and feed off of each other. So yes, it was a great experience.
Yeah, thanks, Veronica. And the fact that Michelle Eldridge and Provo have taken the lead, is pretty impressive as well. And so all of that's available to you. You just have to contact me. Okay, any other questions before we go to Megan? And I wanted to thank Susie Estrada. We're not really related, but we, might be in another life or something. I don't know. For the work that she's doing with parent engagement and the parent portal, also, who is, a new, wonderful person. Well, so I'm a Martinez Estrada. So, I'm not really an authentic Estrada. So anyway, and so, I think this whole thing about us asking a simple question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Megan. Whenever we make a decision, there are two things I always ask myself. The first one is, so what are the implications of this decision? And the second one is, who benefits? See, this is understanding karma, because everything is cause and effect. So if you're making decisions and you don't really understand the implications, then those unforeseen implications end up in some way having an impact on the students we're trying to help and their families. So those two questions are really important for every single decision. You make a decision and you ask, what are the implications? Who does this benefit? You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but when you start being the one who is self-regulating and you're self-assessing the way in which you decide what happens, then, you know, it makes a significant difference. You can go to bed at night and say to yourself, you know, today I was a loving human being. You know, and so that makes a difference. Okay, Megan, take it away.
Thank you, Christelle, and good morning, everyone. Welcome back, new school year. I am going to attempt to share my screen. All right, is everyone seeing?
Yeah, yes, we are. Thanks.
Okay. Let me just rearrange everything that I am seeing. And
And make sure, you know, Megan is like incredibly open and welcoming in relationship to questions. So, and we're not going to be monitoring stuff because, you know, we want to be present to all of you. So, you know, this is a safe place. Every question is important. You know, just unmute yourself or raise your hand or whatever, and, you know, Megan can respond.
absolutely, please interrupt at any time. It's definitely when you're sharing, it's hard to monitor the chat and everything at the same time. So, you know, virtual meetings. Well, first, welcome back. And thank you all for being here. I hope that the school year is off to a great start for everyone. In the chat, I did share the PowerPoint. So hopefully you're able to download it from there. If not, just send me an email and I am happy to forward this on to you. And then also on this front page, you'll probably notice a difference in names on this page. So for those of you who are new to your position, welcome. I am Megan Lopez from the USBE. And I oversee our state's WIDA assessments, our English language proficiency screeners and annual growth and proficiency tests. So another name on here is Tracy Gooley. She is our special education assessment specialist. Some of you may be noticing a name that is missing. Anne Michelle Neal is no longer with the Utah State Board of Education. She has gone back to her roots of school psychology. So we're really grateful that she's working with students directly again in that realm. But so moving forward now, your main points of contact will be myself and Tracy Gooley for any dually identified students, meaning students that are English learners and students that also are considered special education. So those are our emails. Please do note also that I didn't put our phone numbers on there. It's really hard to get to our phones when we're in meetings and trainings all day. But it is easier for us to sneak a peek at our email while we're in meetings, you know, multitasking at our best. So if you really need to get in touch with us ASAP, please send an email, high importance. We are able to answer and respond to that much faster than being able to actually get on the phone. So don't ever apologize. Some of you that I can see right now in this meeting, you always open your emails with apologies. Never ever apologize for, you always say, I'm so sorry, I'm bothering you again. Nope, it's our job to support you and that's what we're here to do. So you are our customers, so we need to meet your needs. Never apologize. Hit us up with any and all questions at all times. All right, so we're going to go through today just general, if you are new to your position, things that you need to know when it comes to the world of WIDA assessments. And then for some of you, this might just be a refresher and a reminder, and then we're going to get into updates for this year. So here we go. All right, there's a lot of verbiage on this screen. Again, you have a copy, so you can read this in detail, click on all the links as you please and explore this more in your own time. Just so you know, the WIDA Access reports are available in the Data Gateway now. They were available in July. There was a weird little glitch and someone in IT they were available and then somehow it got toggled off. They are, I can confirm, back on available again. So as you are getting new students enrolled, you can see their past 24 WIDA Access results through the Data Gateway. Remember that students, they do not need to be screened again if they've already been identified. On our website, and there will be a future slide with the link to our WIDA website on USBE's page. There is guidance, assessment guidance. If a student does move out of state and comes back during 2 different school years, then a student would need to be rescreened. But if they are in Utah schools, they've just moved from one LEA to another LEA and they've been within Utah, the student does not need to be rescreened. Screening was open to begin July 1st. And just remember that if you are administering any of the screeners, you do need to take the test administration trainings, complete those in the WIDA Secure Portal. Those were updated and available as of July 1st as well. So that was a great improvement that we saw, that those screening trainings were updated earlier for people that were going to start them in the summer. So just remember that the rule for screening students at the beginning of the school year, you have 30 calendar days from the first day of school. After those 30 days, it drops down to 10 school days. So again, 30 calendar days at the beginning of the school year. After those 30 days, calendar days are over, it drops down to 10 school days to screen students during the remainder of the year. Technical enhancements to AMS have all been released. You can either download the technical user guide in WIDA AMS if that suits you better, or there's a recording going all over it. And there's a link here that you can just click on. That'll take you to the secure portal. So if you prefer to see all the different technical enhancements for this year, you can watch that. Please do be talking with your technology coordinators to make sure that all of your devices are set up to complete screenings for students that are going to be completing screenings totally online.
Megan, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, you said unmute and just interrupt. So
yeah, do it.
There, see, I started with sorry. Anyway, I have a clarifying question.
Yes.
We have encountered multiple situations where a student did not leave the state. They were in the state, either not attending school or maybe at a school, somehow the kid fell between the cracks and wasn't taking the WIDA and should have been homeschooled. All these kind of scenarios we're coming across. So they haven't left the state, but it's been a number of years since they've taken a WIDA test. Are we supposed to rescreen them?
No, that is a great question, Thais, and thank you for jumping in. No, those students do not get rescreened. It's only if they leave the state of Utah. So if their most current score, WIDA Access, still indicates that they're qualifying for services, then you will continue with services, even if their education was somewhat interrupted, right?
So, okay. Thank you, Megan.
Megan, can we rescreen so we know where to place them if they've been gone for like over 2 years, or don't have a score for 2 years?
You could, if you choose to, just for informative and instructional purposes, but not to qualify them for services. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I feel like this might be a little bit different than what we talked about maybe last year, because sometimes we have kids that leave and they're in even in they go to a charter school that doesn't, or some other school that doesn't administer WIDA. So they'll be gone 5-6 years before they come back. So they left as a 5th grader and are now back as a high schooler. So if we rescreen at that point and they score a 5, we still have to identify them as ML. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if they scored a 5, because the criteria for entrance is the proficient is a 5.0 or higher, but 4.9 or lower is going to qualify that student for services. So per our state's consolidated state ESSA plan, it is if they leave the state of Utah, but if they have been staying in the state of Utah, they have been qualified that whole time, and they do not exit until they reach that proficiency. And also, and thank you, Lindsay, I see that you put in the chat, if they go to a charter, the charters are expected to be administering WIDA access and screeners as well. If the student leaves, goes to a private school, private schools get to do what they want. But since they qualified under Utah law, they are still here. You don't need to rescreen them. You can choose to rescreen students just for maybe, again, instructional and informative purposes, but not qualifying purposes.
Okay. So if they leave and they're in the Catholic diocese, a Catholic school, or right, a parochial school of some sort, and they come back, in high school after leaving in elementary, we can rescreen them, but we have to identify them as an ML at whatever their access score was 5 years ago is what we have to identify them in our SIS.
Yeah, yes, you do. But I think this is a really good point. And we are going to be going through numerous ESSA amendments because, and I'll get to that in a minute, but these are things that we can definitely take a look at clarifying in our ESSA amendment. And just sneak peek, we are going to be having future meetings with this group, since you are, considered very, very important stakeholders in these conversations, as we establish new exit criteria for our duly identified students. So we can also get your feedback on this, because there's other areas that we are starting to see, like, oh, what about these unique situations? So if we're going to be doing future ESSA amendments, we might as well catch all of these things. But honestly, I think we're going to be living in the world of ESSA amendments probably for the next 3 years when it comes to our English learners. So I think we're going to have a lot of opportunity kind of on a yearly basis to catch these things. The more you can communicate to me, the more I can advocate for these changes. And when I call for meetings and need this feedback through surveys or just in stakeholder meetings, please respond, because this gives me more ammunition to take to our TAC committee, our APAC. So TAC is our Technical Advisory Committee for all state assessments. Our APAC is Assessment and Accountability Policy and Advisory Committee. That's required by law to make final recommendations that we eventually take to the board to include in our ESSA amendments. And the more feedback I have, the more I can convince the board to approve these to be submitted to the U.S. Department of Education for approval and hopefully acceptance, right? So keep it coming.
Megan, I have another
Jessica, go.
question.
Yeah.
You may get there, and if you are and I'm ahead of you, just tell me to be patient. Last year, I think you said that we were working on if they take a screener to school and they pass it, so they don't get identified, and then they move school districts. We don't have access to that. Has that been fixed?
Yeah, you're jumping the gun. Thank you for that. Let's get there. Okay, so just one more reminder that's on this page. Please remember, and this is so important, again, this speaks to the conversation Christelle was just having. To screen a student, it must be based on the home language survey. It is not teacher referral. It is not, oh, well, this is their last name or the color of their skin. No, 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 no. Students can only be screened based on what's on that home language survey, okay? And there, again, we have guidance for unique situations that is posted on our website. And we are here for technical assistance to help you through those unique situations. Please reach out so we can walk you through any and all of this. But thank you for queuing me up, Shasta. Screener data. Some of you all have reached out to me. Now, I did talk to the assessment directors about this yesterday. We are starting to, we finally went through the long process of getting this approved by our state's data governors, and it is approved. We get to start collecting and displaying screener data in the data gateway. Lots of data words here. So this we did have to have a lot of meetings on how to make this work, and the best way we came up with to not be a huge lift and burden on the LEAs, but also to make sure that it's the most accurate information that we get, is to collect this information through our Utrex nightly uploads. Okay, so some of you have probably seen that when you click on student lookup and you go into their assessments for that student's profile, you probably have seen WIDA screener, okay? And then you see some fields that say NA. We are starting just this year to start the collection process, okay? Again, like I said, how are we going to get this? It has to be through our Utrex nightly upload. It's going to be really important that you or your assessment director communicate this with the person in your LEA that is responsible for overseeing that data exchange through Utrex. On this page, you can see the school year 25 Utrex specifications. This is all laid out in the specifications. This is information that should have already been marked in your SIS anyways. We are now going to start collecting it through your SIS. So this data is only going to be as accurate as your SIS is, okay? So it's going to be through the student personal SIF file that comes through, okay? And if you or your IT people, whoever is in charge of your Utrex data exchange, have any questions or concerns, please reach out to Cliff Thielen or Henry Hartzler. I am going to actually put a plug in for Henry. He is incredible to work with, and he is the one who has made all of this happen in the data gateway. So he really, this is kind of his baby, making it happen. So he will be really your best point of contact. If this is stuff that you haven't been putting in your SIS, you definitely need to be putting it in your SIS, and because otherwise that would be a new lift for you. But what we need is the date that they were screened and that initial screener score. Okay. Again, SIS Aspire, I know, has these fields already. We definitely discussed this with Paula and her team for Aspire. So just make sure, if you haven't been putting this in your SIS, it does need to be there. And again, part of that is data that you are responsible for, because we do need to know time in program, how long these students have been considered EL. So just make sure that you are doing that. We cannot collect this through WIDA AMS. Some assessment directors were like, well, you guys should just collect this for us. We shouldn't have to put anything in our SIS. We cannot collect this data through AMS because the bulk of screeners that are completed in the state are kindergarten. That's a paper pencil test. AMS has nothing to do with that. There's no way we have access to that data without you putting it in the SIS and accurately. Another thing that we definitely noticed is that when a lot of LEAs are, because we don't know which students, we don't have access to your home language surveys. When LEAs are importing students into AMS for screening, there's no rhyme or reason for why some of the information is the way it is, because I will go and even try to look up students that have been screened, and some LEAs for the student's name will just put X or NA, and I'm like, I have no idea what student that is. And then for their student, their SSID number, they'll just put X or NA again. And so again, we have no way of knowing who those students are, because we're reliant on you for putting information in accurately into AMS, and some LEAs for some reason just won't.
So-
We will do it for access, but when it comes to screening, we don't have control over that.
So Megan, you have some questions
Okay.
in the chat. So do you want me to read them or can you?
Okay. How does that work with WIDA screener for kindergarten with the test being paper pencil? Our Power School does not have this yet in our SIS. So Paula has been working with the various SIS to say we're collecting these fields. So the various SIS throughout the state that is used, they are aware of this. Again, we are just starting the collection process technically, and y'all, I'm going to be honest, I think this is a little bit ridiculous, but technically the SIS vendors, when we have a certain data collection that we want to start, those vendors get 18 months to make those changes, which I think is ridiculous. Most SIS are way more responsive than 18 months, but they have been told this. And again, I'm not an SIS expert because I do not know every single one that is out there. But most of them do have a field of, you know, the initial date the student was identified and what that initial score was. It might not say screener, it might just say initial date, initial score. Okay. So again, my suggestion would be talk to your SIS help desk to understand where would this field be? What is it called in your platform? And then also reach out to Henry to say, you know, because he can show whether or not and see if we are actually collecting the data accurately. So again, help desks and Henry, I'm gonna say.
Megan,
Yeah.
what is our timeline on this before it starts causing Utrecht's errors?
You know, that's a great question. I don't, if I'm recalling, I don't want to make everyone sick by like pulling up the specifications. But
I just know that's going to be one of our
right
TV
now,
questions.
because not all students are required to have this field, right? Because not every student is going to be EL, right? I don't think you're going to get any of those fatal error warnings. So I think, I do think you should be okay, but that would definitely be a question for Henry, or even Maureen Rushing. She's our assessment data specialist, but I would reach out to Henry first and foremost.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then Janine, thank you. She is on top of it. If you are an Aspire SIS user, it says click on special programs, the profile, and then choose screener. So yeah, I know Aspire, Paula and her team were like, done on it. We were like, yay. So again, we're just starting this off, but hopefully as the years go by, this is going to make everyone's lives a lot easier. You can just pull up the student and see when they were screened, if they were screened. And then we're also going to know if students are, you know, just being placed into programs based on last names, which again, it happens. Scary that we still have these conversations. All right, so moving on. Let's talk about access. Please remember, I'm going to, in just a few minutes, share the dates with you. When we ask LEAs to submit kind of like testing plans and dates and stuff like that, WIDA access is an exception to the rule. Use the entire test window, please. Don't just say, oh, we're only going to do 6 weeks. And also, do not wait till the last 2 weeks of the window to start testing. This is directly tied to a student's civil rights. You need to provide ample opportunity for the student to engage in testing, okay? So please ensure all students have that opportunity. If you are shortening that testing window, you are shortening their opportunity or quite possibly eliminating that opportunity. Students get sick, they go on vacation, things happen. Please use the entire test window. One great opportunity that I just want to let you know about is the kindergarten access is being overhauled and redesigned. WIDA is actively recruiting for field test this year. So we will still have the regular kindergarten access, but we are looking for LEAs to volunteer to do another field test on top of that. And there is a lot of incentive. LEAs that qualify to participate in this field test, for every single student that they have participate in the field test, they will receive $100 for. So that could add up. It's $100 per student. Not everyone is guaranteed a spot to participate. So just make yourself look as desirable to WIDA as possible. On this slide, there is a link to the survey to apply to participate. I do not get to choose that. I can put a good plug in though for you and try my hardest. If you do have questions, there is an email you can send questions to. If you do get chosen to do the field test, you would be doing both the regular kindergarten access and then the field test. And if you do the field test, you would not be guaranteed to get the data back from the field test. So it will benefit everyone because it's the redesigned kindergarten access that will become operational in the future and everyone will use. I personally would love to see Utah have a stake in that game and be able to provide data for setting those cuts. I would love our students to be represented in those demographics that are eventually going to set the proficiency and cuts and everything for the kindergarten access test. So that is access. And here are the dates. These are posted already on our website. Okay. Again, all of this has been communicated with your assessment directors. A couple of exciting changes. These were requests that we got. We are making things happen for you all. First of all, ordering for alternate and Braille. Remember, LEAs are responsible for those two materials. We order everything else for you. That will open up early to mid-October. So, well, specifically October 11th. The first pre-ID upload will be October 30th. Okay. So have as many students identified in your SIS when we're pulling that data, because we will send the October 30th information to WIDA to be uploaded. All materials will be ordered for regular access and kindergarten access based on that. Again, can't stress enough, you all are responsible for determining who's going to take alt and Braille, as we cannot make those determinations at the state for you. We will have, again, like we did last year, we will have a second pre-ID upload. This one's going to come mid-December this year. Okay, so right before the break. So you can come back from the break and those students will be in there ready to start testing right in January. The biggest change that you're going to see on here is when you're going to receive materials. We heard you. Everyone was like, we hate getting them right before testing, and we hate getting the materials like quite possibly while we're still on break. So we were able to work out a new schedule with WIDA and DRC. All LEAs in the state will be receiving their materials before they leave for the winter break. Those will all be coming between December 13th and the 16th. Remember, people do need to be there to sign for them based on all the calendars that were submitted to the state by the various LEAs. We determined these would be the best dates as schools are actually going to be in session then. So, yay, you're getting your materials early. You don't have to arrange to have someone there in the office or worry about materials coming late because of snowstorms or anything like that. I mean, they still could because it is December. Again, our test window is January 7th through March 7th. And you will be receiving your reports on May 1st. So, another reminder that I do want to let you know about, since we are now talking about the new access year, just as a reminder, this previous access year, we had the new alt access. Standard setting was completed this summer. The new cuts are just about to be determined for that new test. You will be receiving your spring 24 alternate access reports on September 12th. Okay. So just remember, Utah does not have a current exit for that population, and that is going to be the exit criteria that we are working on first and foremost in our next ESSA amendment. So we are going to start work on that as soon as the cuts are released and determined. So we can start also exiting those students as well once they reach proficiency based on the new alternate access. We will be looking for feedback from you all when we begin the work to start determining what is going to be proficient for students that are duly identified, and also based on the new access, alternate access test. Okay, so that'll be our first getting our feet wet in this next round of ETSA amendments. So keep an eye out September 12th for the updated alternate access reports. All right. This, again, just refreshers or new information if you are new to this role. These are probably the three most important websites that you'll need to know when it comes to WIDA on this screen. The most important thing and tip that I can say is make sure you're communicating within your LEA. WIDA is one of those assessments that crosses a lot of departments, okay? Who's going to oversee WIDA assessments? Is it going to be your assessment director? Is it going to be you as the ALS director? Who's your technology coordinator? Who is going to be giving these assessments? All of that needs to be determined. And so it's key that you discuss this and communicate within your LEA. I will always present all of this information to assessment directors and this group to make sure everyone's on the same page. But I only send the weekly memos, which is, you know, updates for the week to assessment directors. So if you want to get on that listserv, just send me an email. We can add you to that listserv so you can get that, or talk again to whoever your assessment director is to say, can you be communicating and sharing all these emails with me when they pertain to me? Okay, so please just make sure. I would save these websites and bookmark them, and just make sure that, again, you're talking about who's going to be responsible for what. Remember that we have the 2 assessments. We have Screener and we have Access. Screener, again, is available all year as students enroll new to the state. And then again, if they're in Utah and stay in Utah just once, okay? For the Access and alternate access, that's the annual growth and proficiency. Those, that window is always kind of that January, February window each year, okay? We are an online state for everything, except paper is allowable if a student is brand new, maybe, you know, to technology, or if their accommodations require them to use paper, or we do have instances where students are banned from computers. So paper is allowable. So if for Screener you need paper, just reach out to me. We cover the costs. We house those at the state. And then you can order paper access if you need to during materials ordering. And again, you are in charge of determining who takes alternate and Braille, and you order those materials as well.
Hey, Megan, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still approved to use the paper model? It's just that you won't provide the copies?
Yes, paper model is still approved as a screener, but that's only if the LEA chooses and opts for that, and they're going to cover the costs. We only pay for all the screeners and even the paper screeners if you need those.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, great question. All right, so you're going to need 2 accounts. The first one is the WIDA Secure Portal account. If you do need one at the district level, please reach out to me and I can set that up. Again, in consultation and talking to your assessment director who's going to be in charge here. Once you have your district level account, you will be able to set up users for your district. And your district, your LEA, is going to be responsible for ensuring that those that need secure portal accounts have them. I would encourage you to have every educator have one, because there's the free self-paced online learning through the secure portal. But more importantly, the secure portal is where all the test administration trainings take place, and you will need to ensure that test administrators are doing the trainings annually and completing them to administer the test. And you can, as a district person, check all of that through the secure portal, okay? This is also where you can download all screener materials from, where you get all the kindergarten screener materials and where the calculators are for kindergarten screeners. The other account is the WIDA AMS account, otherwise known as DRC. Again, district level, reach out to me. I will set that up for you if you don't have district level. And then once you have district level, again, someone in your LEA will be responsible for creating accounts for test administrators. Okay. And again, you do need to complete trainings annually each year, as there are always slight changes and tweaks to the tests and the assessments and the systems. Every year, there's always some kind of new enhancement. So you only need to do the trainings for the tests that you will actually administer. So if you're in a secondary setting, you don't need to do the kindergarten screener training. Okay. You would need to do the screener training for grades. I think it's 6 through 12, right? So only do trainings each year for the tests that you will administer.
So I'm just
go ahead.
checking, Megan, to see if you answered all the questions in the chat.
Have I missed anything?
Robin, you probably answered this. Redesign kinder access field test. Do we get data, or is it just benefiting WIDA?
I think I answered that. Robin, did I answer that sufficiently for you? I think I see you said, yeah. Okay. If you have more questions, you can reach out to me or send an email to, on that one slide to ask more questions.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah. All right, so AMS is where you're going to monitor test completion, order your materials, extra materials, and also where you'll complete your data validation, and where you retrieve your test scores, okay? So again, reach out to me if you need a district level. Once you have that district level, you or your assessment director are going to be responsible for creating accounts for everyone else in your LEA that needs them. All right. The most important things that for you to know is be familiar with our checklists. I am still in the process of updating our access checklist. That always gets updated in September. Because the ID and placement checklist or guidance is more important for the beginning of the year. That one has been updated already and is posted. So that one is there. September is when you can start to look for the updated access checklist for this year. Again, knowing, oh, and I put October 29th. The upload takes place on the 30th. So I would say give yourself a deadline of the 29th to make sure everything's updated, because I'm not sure exactly the time on the 30th that data is pulled. LEAs do need to do data validation. This year's dates are April 2nd through the 15th, okay? And that's where you go in and make sure SSIDs are correct, names are correct. Do you have duplicate students? Do you have do not score codes that need to be put in there, okay? Every step of this process, if you're like, what is she talking about? I will be sending emails. You will also be getting emails from WIDA DRC that will walk you through every step of the process, even with screenshots, okay? And then just remember, very important, you will get online reports on the 1st of May. So if you can report via online. Otherwise, you will get printed reports, I believe, 2 weeks later. If you need to wait for the printed reports to distribute to parents, just know by Utah law, you have to share reports, score reports, within 3 weeks of receiving them. So depending on how you communicate that out, if you can start communicating it when you receive online, that's when your 3 weeks will start. If you need to wait for the printed ones to come, then that's when your 3 weeks will start to communicate scores to parents, teachers, and students. And then training opportunities, you will also need to be communicating to your LEAs. So here are those trainings for this year. There are, starting September 1st, going to be 9 self-paced online workshops available to all educators in the state of Utah. Okay, so if educators want to do those, they can. They just need a secure portal account that you can set up, and there is a way to do mass uploads. WIDA customer service can walk you through that very easily. And then the USBE hosted partnered trainings that we will do with WIDA are here on the screen for this year. They are in Midas. You can start to register for these now. So we have these spread out for over the year, okay? And there's more information on these in Midas, so you can see specifically which each of these trainings are, or you can reach out to me and say, hey, do you think this is gonna be a good fit for me? I'm gonna probably tell you yes to all of them, but I can give you more information so you can be more informed when you make decisions of which trainings you want to go to or have other staff and colleagues go to. Okay, but those are all available in Midas. And my contact, this time I did put my phone number, but email is going to be better. So reach out to myself or Tracy if you have any questions. This was a lot of information. So hopefully it's a refresher, but if it's new for you, I'm just going to say, give yourself a year to get used to this process. And do not hesitate to reach out with any questions and let us know how we can better assist you. And when you have feedback, concerns, let us know, because now's the time. We have opportunities to amend things and get it right for our Utah ML students and our LEAs. So keep the feedback coming. I will pause here to see if there are any other questions. You guys have been fantastic, and thank you for just chiming in when you needed to.
Thanks, Megan. And remember, this is the meeting is being recorded, and it will be on the Supporting Students YouTube USBE playlist, which is under my name. So, you know, all you have to do is actually look at the link under my signature, and you can connect to the playlist.
I will say, if you forget to reach out to me, or if this is the first time and you're like, oh, who was she? Christelle is amazing at getting me any emails that need to come my way as well. So, you know, we definitely talk and chat. So we are a team. We will get information or you to the right people that you need to get to anytime.
Yeah, I'll just say, to support Megan's work, is that the whole point of assessment is to monitor the progress of students and the kind of equitable access they have. So working with counselors is really important. There should not be any detriment in relationship to how well scaffolded instruction supports students in having access to career and college coursework. I mean, this is really important. All you have to do is look at the counselors' SOAR reports and see that our students are underrepresented in advanced coursework, and this ends up being a problem.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what Christelle said. And Michelle put it in there, everyone talking, everyone communicating, so important. But being multilingual, it is not a deficit. It is an asset. It is a superpower. These students are incredibly talented and gifted. They are doing so much in their brain cognitively through translating. It really is a gift and an asset that we need to leverage. And we should be leveraging every day and utilizing in the classroom every day. So, and again, these tests show us how those students are growing in those strengths.
Great, thanks so much, Megan. Any last questions for Megan? I'm going to make a few more announcements, and then I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to stay on so that if you have any questions in a smaller context, because it's a lot of information, and there's, you know, the reason I love this meeting is there are a lot of first-time people as well as people who are experienced. And so learning from each other this way is really a great example on how heterogeneous grouping in classrooms actually helps instead of isolating, students. Okay, so here are my last announcements. If you look on the Title III webpage, there are toolkits, and I'm going to be designing 2 new courses. One is the EL toolkit, and the other one is the newcomer toolkit. And so you'll be, actually able to have that as a professional learning experience as well. It'll all be competency based, and you'll be able to, all you have to do is let me know if you want to be a teacher in the design, and then you can actually use the design on your own Canvas course. So it'll be the EL toolkit and the newcomer toolkit, which has fabulous resources. The other thing is, just to be clear, again, consortiums for Title III are always an opportunity for those LEAs whose designation and allocation is below the 10,000 mark. So there are charters that have already organized themselves in consortiums, and that's already established, but this is the deadline for consortium organization. I don't do the organizing. The consortiums are actually based, especially in charter schools, about the way in which they want to work together in a systematic way. And one of those people in the consortium actually is the fiscal agent. So, which means that next week, because it's the deadline, the new allocations will go out, because all the charters that are under 10,000 will then, and then art in a consortium will then be consolidated into the general Title III allocation. So your absolute final allocation will probably be available when Marilee can do the calculations. That doesn't include all the charters below the 10,000 mark. So what questions do you have in general for me? And then I'll actually stop the recording. So general questions. And then if you have specific questions related to the work that you're doing or any kind of additional technical assistance, you have great colleagues here who have designed competency-based ESL endorsements. Their final exhibitions are extraordinary, with teachers really changing their practice because they've established personalized goals for their own learning, because that's how adults learn, just like students, right? Self-assessing, identifying quality work, producing quality work. Okay, so the concluding issue will be, not issue, but the concluding comment will be the 5-year cycle with the fiscal monitoring is already has been revised because of Clint's work and Marilee's work, and it'll be uploaded into the Title III website, so you can actually see, the year that you're going to be coming up for Title III fiscal monitoring as well as program monitoring. So that'll be up. There are all kinds of resources. The legislation piece is really important with the language access policy. So you really should focus on, especially if you're a new person, going over all the information and resources that are on the Title III website. Another important piece, and I got this from Canyons and Bev, is the way in which counselors can evaluate transcripts from countries all over the world. We don't want to hear counselors saying things like, well, we're not going to give you credit for that because you took it in Guatemala, or you took it in Colombia, or you took it whatever. That's just, a certain kind of assumption based on the educational perspectives of certain people in relationship to how education in the United States somehow is preferable than education in other countries. The last thing is, I met a wonderful student at Utah International Charter He's an amazing chess person. He escaped from Afghanistan by way of Turkey. His father was injured in IED. His big question for me was, how can you help me get to Harvard? So this is the whole thing that Megan is talking about and that we all believe, that every individual human being has extraordinary potential. And so the way in which we create conditions for them to have advocates that believe in them is really, what our purpose is. So I'm going to stop the recording and thank all of you for being here. And anybody who wants to stay on and ask questions, I'm open to any of that. Thanks so much. Take care. And thank you for your supporting the children of Utah.
Thanks, Estrella.